sacrifice, lose children, lose their homes, be street homeless because of drug and alcohol use.
Losing an arm, losing a leg, losing our family, being homeless, maybe that seems a million miles away. Hello. Welcome to Like This Actually Work. Hello. I am going to invite my friend Sarah Instagram Live. I'm going to talk tonight a little bit about rock bottom, the idea of rock bottom, and when do we need to make a change with our relationship with alcohol. I am going to be joined by Sarah. We definitely don't need to hit rock bottom to initiate change. No, absolutely not. That's my experience of it. So for those of you that are watching, I would love to know what your experience is with the idea of rock bottom. Whether you needed to hit a rock bottom before you made a change, what rock bottom even means to you. I am just going to, I'm not very good at doing this, so I'm just going to try and get Sarah, that's ours as well, through the glass recovery. I would love to know what your experience is with it, how long you've been sober, if you're struggling to, which seems to be the way with these things. I don't really know what I'm doing. No requests to co-host the pit here. Okay, if Sarah can send me a request, maybe. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about my story with giving up alcohol. I have proudly been alcohol-free for just over 6 years. I absolutely love my alcohol-free life. And there were lots of things that kept me stuck in my drinking cycle. One of the ideas being that sobriety was only for people who hit rock bottom. I didn't really know what that meant. I thought it was just purely for people who were non-functioning, where alcohol had taken over everything, and that they had lost sight of everything that was important in the pursuit of alcohol. Where is she? So the idea of rock bottom, what is rock bottom? What did it mean to me? As I said, for me, rock bottom meant that people were giving up everything in pursuit of one thing. I think I heard on the Huberman Lab podcast him talk about the idea that addiction is losing everything in pursuit of one thing, and happiness, sobriety is giving up that one thing and enjoying everything else. So for me, the idea that people had to hit rock bottom, what that looked like for certain people, that kept me stuck in my drinking cycle for about 15 years. Hey, there she is. Sarah's going to join us and we can carry on a little bit more. Yeah, it kept me stuck for about 15 years in my drinking cycle. I remember when I was about 20 saying that I thought I had an issue with alcohol and being told, no, your drinking is the same as everybody else's. I don't drink in the morning. I wasn't hiding my drinking. I was completely functioning. Here is Sarah joining us. Yay! She's
Yay!
thank goodness. I thought I was going to have to speak to myself for half an hour. Sarah, say hello.
Hello everyone, I'm here. Yay!
This is Sarah from my sober strategy. So for those that don't know, first of all, I would love for people to go and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Sobriety Sisterhood's YouTube channel, because what Sarah and I are hoping to do is bring back the Sobriety Unleashed podcast, and we would like to do that live so that we can answer questions, which here we can answer questions. And it will be a new generation, because Simon is off doing other things. He's like just doing life. But we want to continue that narrative, right? Continue that dialogue around sobriety. So Sarah, say hi. And if you'd like to share a little bit of your story, then that would be great for people to hear.
Okay, so I joined Sobriety Sisterhood last November the 2nd. Actually, I joined Be Sober last November the 2nd.
Yeah.
After I woke up for the final time. knowing that something really had to shift in how I was choosing to drink and party. And I woke up and I just thought, as I had many times before, and I'm sure many of you have before, thinking, I'm never going to drink again, that's it. And then 2 hours later, have a pint in my hand. And just something on that day shifted for me. I think I'd been slowly falling out of love with my relationship with alcohol, and recognizing that alcohol was leading me to be in places I didn't want to be, and with people I didn't want to be more and more often. So I took the plunge, not really knowing if it would work, for the 900th time, and it did. It has, and here I am. I think I'm on 457 or 8 days. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
amazing.
I know. I always think it's amazing. Like, having watched Sarah's journey, is that lots of people have thought your journey was really easy, right? Like,
Yeah,
we've heard that quite. Oh, Sarah's really thrived in it and found it super simple. But actually, I think it's the fact that you, like you said, this is a journey. There is no. I really don't think people just decide one day to give up alcohol. I do think that it's the psychology of change leads us to, like, this pre-contemplation where we're living in this ignorance is bliss. I don't have an issue, into contemplation. Would life look different if I gave up alcohol, to then planning and then taking action? And when I met you, you were very much in the taking action. So it looked, from our community, it looked super simple for you, didn't it? You kind of stepped into it and you
yeah,
seemed to thrive in
absolutely.
it straight away.
Yeah, and I think because ironically, I'd always worked in kind of recovery, so or homelessness and around. I'd supported alcohol and drug users, and so I knew quite a lot of the tools, uh, but could never apply them to myself, of course, as we can't. So when I think I walked into it not knowing what needed to happen, other than I needed not to drink another bloody pint.
Yeah,
That alone, and I think for me, alcohol has always been the gateway to other things. And once, if I don't drink, then those other things don't happen.
yeah,
So for me, it was about, I have to be able to control this one thing. It's just one thing, because everything else will stop if I control this one thing. And I haven't found the other things difficult not to do, because I haven't had one. I always say, all I've got to do is not drink that first sip.
yeah.
Because if I drink that first sip, then I know 20 pints later, I'm going to be doing things I do not want to do.
And it's a really interesting point. So I hear so often people used to laugh, right? Where if you'd say, well, alcohol's the gateway drug. Um, but I really do believe it is the gateway drug. When we start to look at people who have reoccurrence of drug use or other addictive kind of behaviors, it's normally alcohol that has been the first stage of that, the first step, because our rational self goes. So it's interesting that you say that. Yeah, it is the gateway drug for you. And I find this really interesting because you worked in the recovery sector. Did you need to hit a rock bottom? And especially with that perspective of working in the recovery sector, how did your rock bottom look to other people's rock bottom, or what initiated that? Right, okay, actually today is different.
Sure. I mean, working in the homelessness sector and recovery sector, I work with people who lost arms and legs through injecting heroin, so for them, and they still carried on injecting. So for them, losing an arm wasn't their rock bottom.
Yeah,
So I've seen people really sacrifice, lose children, lose their homes, be street homeless because of drug and alcohol use. So my kind of perspective of rock bottom was really skewed, I guess, because I knew I wasn't going to bloody end up there. I
yeah,
wasn't going to lose an arm. I wasn't prepared to lose an arm or lose my children. Not of course, that actually when it comes to it, you have any control. Um, but for me, I think I had always romanticized my alcohol and drug use. oh, I'm of that generation. I'm a ladette. It's just what people of women of my age, of my generation do. It's part and parcel of being a kind of, a, what was that expression? I was about to say ladyboy. I don't mean ladyboy.
Ladette, yeah, no,
No,
it's definitely not a ladyboy. It's a whole different thing.
not a ladyboy. So I think, I kind of really romanticized my relationship with drugs and alcohol, and with the part of the rave generation and all those things. Um, so I really had to look at, what did I really want to drink that first pint? Is that really what I wanted to do? Because once I'd had it, then to carry on was what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
But and I can remember being in the day before I stopped drinking, being in a pub and just sitting there thinking to myself, what are you doing? You're here. You don't want to be here, but you're here through some kind of distorted loyalty to what you think your life is, and it isn't. I didn't want to be there, and I can remember that last pint, or the first pint of that day, going into my body, and I could feel it cold in my legs, cold in my. I was so aware of it that I did not want to be doing this. Um, and of course, that pint led to 15 more, led to an after party, and so for me, that rock bottom was the fact that I no longer was choosing.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
losing my sense of control over it. Was I picking up a bottle of vodka in the morning and drinking it in my bed? No, I wasn't. Was I pissing myself? No, I wasn't. Was I stealing alcohol? No, I wasn't.
Yeah.
But was I really enjoying it anymore? I wasn't.
No.
And so why was I doing that to myself?
And it does, it's that like sense of control, right?
Absolutely,
That's
yeah.
I was just starting to say that in my 20s I remember waking up and being in floods of tears in the morning and saying I think I have an issue with alcohol, and my then partner laughing at me and saying no you don't. It's like, well, why, when I don't want to do this thing, do I have no control over if it's in front of me doing it and then making out like I really love it? And your point there about that whole ladette culture, right, is we were definitely the generation that were fed the you can drink like a man. You're like, you can drink as much. There was a certain amount of ego attached to it. I loved the fact that I could drink my
Yeah,
male friends under the table. And it was pushed upon us as well. The alco pop scene that suddenly came in, the drinking from 13, 14. I don't know, what age did you start drinking?
12. I
Yeah.
got alcohol poisoning when I was 12. The first time I got pissed, I got alcohol poisoning
Yeah.
because I just went in hard, of course.
Yeah. So this is an interesting thing. And as you said, the idea of rock bottom moves for everybody, right? So having alcohol poisoning at 12,
Probably was my
possibly.
robot.
And when I think back to some of my drinking, it's like, yeah, there was definitely some points where I would have thought that's a pretty fucking low point.
Mm,
Is it rock bottom? No, because I'm not the person that's drinking vodka in the morning in my bed, and I'm still going to work, and I'm still cooking my kids tea, and I'm still doing this, and I'm still doing that. Um, does it mean that I won't benefit from making a change though if I stop drinking? Do we have to have that massive contrast to get to that stage before we see a benefit from stopping drinking? For anybody that's considering stopping drinking, the one question that I talk about with clients, rather than the idea of rock bottom, is unintended consequences. It's like,
yeah,
what unintended consequences have we seen from our drinking? Because maybe it's not rock bottom. Maybe losing an arm, losing a leg, losing our family, being homeless, maybe that seems a million miles away. Which of course it's not. It's only a few steps away for people.
absolutely.
Um, and from my personal experience, having the father of my kids in rehab and me saying to him, is this your rock bottom? And he was, no, people have lost their families, lost their homes, they've been in and out several times. Well, here he is now, been in and out several times and lost his family, and it's still drinking. So yeah. So
Yeah,
unintended consequences. Had you seen any unintended consequences that made you kind of start to think this is not what I want then?
absolutely. I think, well, the fact that you're just so tired all the time,
Mm-hmm.
you're either tired because you are drinking and the toll that's taking on your body when you're actively drinking, like literally actively drinking, how tired you are because you're hungover,
Mm-hmm.
how tired you are because accumulatively you are poisoning your body, you're not eating properly, you are holding on to stress, you're not doing anything positive to get rid of that stress, you're just living day in, day out, repeating over, get pissed, sleep,
Yeah.
repeat. It's just like, and like you, I was functioning, I have children, I was holding down a job, maintaining all those things, high functioning, but I was still doing the same things as someone who was not doing any of those things, who had been through that process. Um, and in some ways, maybe I didn't physically lose my children. Maybe I didn't, um, they weren't out of my house, but I wasn't as connected to them as I am now and could have been. I wasn't as patient with them. I mean, I was a shouty ogre, you know, mainly because I was tired all the time.
Yeah.
And because it was like, well, now you're standing in and it sounds terrible, but we've got to be honest, you're standing in the way of something I want to do.
Yeah.
And I can't do what I want to do because you're there. So I was really impatient and really, yeah, it was just
Yeah.
horrible, horrible. And now I think the biggest thing is that they're able to trust me and I'm able to trust myself. They know that I am not going to be drunk. And even though I don't think I was ever particularly horrible when I was drunk, I wasn't myself.
Yeah.
And they know now they're getting a consistent person.
Yeah.
It's not going to change because I've been to the pub or not been to the pub or been too long at the pub or not been long enough at the pub or whatever. And they're getting consistency.
Yeah. And I do think I underestimated the impact that probably drinking had on me as a parent and how that energy shifts for our kids, right? Because
Yeah.
when we stop drinking and we're around people that have been drinking, I really, really pick up on the energy shift. There's like a sweet spot, right? When people have had a drink or two, maybe, and then there's an energy shift where it's, oh, I don't quite know what I'm getting here. And I think I was like you. My kids go, I don't know what happened to you, but you've changed completely as a parent. I was a complete control freak, which is ironic because you're not in control at all when you're drinking, right? And just sleep deprived because our sleep, even when we think we're getting good sleep, is awful when we're drinking, and
Yeah.
our sleep impacts everything. So how we regulate our moods, and then the work that we do after we give up drinking, after we remove the alcohol, to work through our emotions, to work through our moods. It's had an enormous impact on the kids. What's your favourite thing about not drinking?
God. That I'm just happy with I'm at ease, I think. When I first stopped drinking, I was still very much thinking, oh, I can still go to the pub. I can still have a drinker's lifestyle
Yeah,
without drinking.
yeah,
Um, and that changed probably around last September-ish, I think, just before a year. And I basically sat in the pub and I saw these people around me and I was like, God, you're so boring. And you're so annoying. And you're so drunk. And I thought, what am I doing here? Why am I still wasting my time in this place? Why am I still here?
yeah,
Um, and I think the biggest challenge for me was, being falling in love with the mundane, because I think it's such a shift when you stop drinking and stop partying and really accepting that you are never probably going to feel as high as you did when you were drinking and partying. It's not going to happen because they are artificial stimuli. It's not going to happen. So I think for me, it's like, I think maybe I was still doing that, thinking, oh, I'll find it without partying.
Yeah.
I'll still get that high without doing those things just by being in the same place. And of course, it's not going to happen.
No.
So I think for me, it's been just being happy to be able to sit on my bed on a Friday night, and just be happy with the fact that I'm reading something which has increased massively. I mean, I've been able to pursue things that I did not think were possible when I was drinking. Not because I knew it was about me drinking, but because I didn't have time.
Yeah.
Because I spent so much time drinking
Yeah. And
or recovering from drinking.
that links back to those unintended consequences. I
Yeah,
think for me, I felt like the unintended consequence was that I lost myself and the person that I wanted to be, because like all my hobbies revolved around drinking.
yeah,
I wouldn't have dreamed going somewhere, you know, it was so linked to fun. Annie, hi Annie. She's saying that Sarah's a sober rock star. Absolutely. Um, yeah, it's so linked to fun that I couldn't think of anything. Well, I'm going to go somewhere where there's no alcohol, and lots of people do exactly what you did, right? Of that, I can have the same lifestyle but without the alcohol, and it is learning that actually maybe things start to shift as we step away from alcohol. And lots of things. One of the symptoms that people experience when they stop drinking is dysphoria. So a falling out of love with their life to a certain extent. Lots of people experience euphoria, the pink cloud, but I think that depends really where you are. And lots of people like cycle between the two, a euphoria and a dysphoria, and feel almost like they're bipolar. Like there's lots of ups and downs. It is starting to fall in love with our real life and the joy of missing out, the joy in the small things. And that unintended consequence of drinking was that I didn't give a shit about the small
yeah,
things, like sitting in bed with a cup of tea, or the sunrises or the sunsets. Like now I love those types of things. Silence where there's no people. It's like
absolutely.
absolutely lovely. Um, there's the alcohol audit. I always find quite an interesting tool for people who are starting to question their drinking. So maybe it doesn't look like a rock bottom. As I say, I think that rock bottom moves and moves and moves. For lots of people, a rock bottom they might come back and say, oh, if I had a drink driving conviction, or if I had issues within my relationship, or if I lost my job. And then when those kinds of things occur, it tends to be actually, I was really unlucky at that point. I was really unlucky that I got caught. So that line moves, doesn't it? So a kind of an audit of your alcohol use is a useful tool to do. There's some things on the website, my website, that you can have a look at to see the alcohol audit, some questions that you can ask yourself. I think, Sarah, your insight of I was doing something that I really didn't want to do is a really, really good reflection and a great place to start for people. Um,
Yeah,
Being very mindful of their drinking and why exactly they are drinking.
yeah. I mean, if you're waking up in the morning and the first thing you do is, oh shit, what happened?
Yeah,
Or checking beside you to see if anyone's there that you don't want to be there, or don't, like, oh no, I've still got my pants on, there's someone sitting beside me. Those things. If they're the first things you're doing, rather than waking up and going, oh, God, I feel well rested. I had such a good night.
yeah,
If you're, I can remember just laying in bed with my big toes of anxiety. Like I've got supersized big toes, like twitching them, just thinking, oh God, what happened? I don't know what happened. I know I'm laying here in bed, fully dressed with my shoes still on. I can't remember how I got home. I think I've got my keys, my wallet. Hopefully, my wallet's downstairs, but it's not in my bag. Oh my God, I feel terrible. How much money did I spend? My children are home in 2 hours. All of those things. And I talk about my rock bottom as not being too distressing, but actually, in those moments when you first wake up, it's so anxious and so full of regret and
Yeah.
shame and self-loathing. It's what a horrible way to voluntarily, intentionally make yourself be.
Yes. And that's when you're talking is that kind of the how we opt in to that, thinking that that is a normal thing to opt into, and that we simply need to do better when it comes to our drinking, when this is an addictive substance, right?
Absolutely.
This it's doing exactly what it says on the tin. This is a psychoactive, addictive substance, so it isn't up to us to control. Um, what I would suggest for people and ask people to do is this therapeutic experiment, right? If you are questioning whether alcohol is serving you, whether you think you've hit a rock bottom or not, is to take a break. If take a break for 30 days and see what it looks like to not drink. That was how I started off my sober journey, was taking 30-day breaks over and over and over again. The belief that only alcoholics needed to stop drinking was what kept me stuck in that cycle for so
Yeah.
long. Okay, well, I just need to moderate, only to find out I still couldn't moderate. And it still had those consequences. But just start to take a break, right? And start to look at the benefits that you're seeing, start to look at the differences that you're seeing when you stop
Yeah.
drinking.
Definitely. And I think they come. The first few days are dreadful. I mean, let's face it. We can't hide away from that or lie. That for me, it was about my sleep was terrible. My body was getting rid of all of the horrible stuff in it. I felt like rubbish the first few days. And I think, people who are giving up for 30 days, they still don't get to that point where they are loving the fact that they are sober. They are still not drinking rather than sober.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a much longer period of time to start seeing those real benefits of thanking the sun, which is something I like. Before I'd be like, "Oh, the bloody sun's in my eyes, Scout." Sitting in a pub beer garden and complaining because the sun's in my eyes. You're disturbing my pint. And now I walk outside, and especially at the moment, because it's winter and
Yeah.
seeing the sun, it always reminds me of Helen. I say, "Oh, thank you to the thank you
Yeah.
to the sun." And it does, but I think it takes a bit longer than those first few weeks or couple of months to start appreciating those really kind of mundane, everyday, but absolutely joy-filled things. You've just got to keep going.
Yeah.
You've
And it's going and being curious, right? It's like
absolutely.
just saying, where does this take me? I know what my drinking life, I know where that leads. I know that that leads to the mornings where I wake up full of regret or shame or guilt. I know that it leads to me staying small rather than being as big as I can, and stepping into the person that I can be. What does it look like if I take a break and I just keep on going? It Yeah, the small things, the beautiful things. There is short-term sobriety, right? There's putting down the alcohol, getting through those uncomfortable first days and weeks, and then there is long-term or mid-term, long-term sobriety. That is the exciting work, and it is stepping into it with curiosity, with that beginner's mind. They were saying mindfulness, with that, like, the if you look at it like through the lens of a toddler, what does this look? What does this
Absolutely.
yeah, what does this look like for me? How can things change for me?
Absolutely. I think for me, I started drinking when I was 12. I didn't know, I've not had the opportunity to know who I am since I was 12, when I had no idea who I was because I was bloody
Yeah.
12. So I don't know I didn't know who I was as an adult
Yeah.
person
No,
without
and
alcohol. I've never had
that's
that.
that's scary, right? It's scary and it's
It's
exciting at the
petrifying.
same time
Yeah.
of not knowing who I actually am. I would say it's like hitting the factory reset button, because if you've been drinking like us since 12, 13, 14, you don't know who you are as an adult. Nobody around you also knows who you are as an adult without alcohol in your life, and what you're capable of. So it's hitting factory reset and getting to choose who you are.
Absolutely. And really, those things, when I first started working with you, Ellen, those core values. What are your core values? I was like, well, I don't know. And it was so early on in the journey, and those are the things that really paved the way for what was possible. I think that they really, because not drinking is so different to being sober. It's
Yeah,
so different, and I think what you did was you paved a way that made me curious enough to wonder how great I could be without alcohol and how good my life could be without it. Because the fact that I had to sit there and, oh God, I struggled in those first few months. I struggled so much. It wasn't about not drinking. I was quite very steadfast about the fact I wasn't going to drink. And yeah, I had my wobbly moments, but I was so determined. But it was what was left when the drink wasn't hiding it
yeah,
that was so difficult. And those calls with you, they were they just me kept me going to, I think, because I'm such a determined to prove to myself that this wasn't it,
yeah,
and that I wasn't going to be overwhelmed by alcohol, that I wasn't going to let myself down
yeah.
with
I
it.
I absolutely love it. I love watching the journey of people who, first of all, you can see people kind of afraid, right? And we talk a lot about that in the groups as well, what the fears going forward. Afraid of what this journey looks like, and then there is starting to get comfortable with it, and then there's watching the people starting their degrees and
Yeah,
doing all these exciting things and stepping into the
absolutely.
person that they just
Yeah,
didn't know that they were capable of being, and like comfortable in their own
yeah,
skin as an adult.
yeah.
Um,
And it's
it's
so scary. Yeah, when you start,
yeah,
it's so scary that, because you do not, even though lots of things you may have done when you were drinking are far scarier, right? If I wrote down, I haven't done it, I'm too scared. But if I wrote down a list of my experiences that were that happened because of drinking,
yeah,
that would be a difficult write.
yeah. One
I'm not
day,
there yet.
that's
One
going to
day,
be
yeah,
a good exercise to do one day.
yeah,
And I do think it's a really important point again, and Sarah and I will keep on doing these, hopefully every week, maybe, but we will, yeah, let you know how often we're doing these. A really nice discussion about this idea of dry drunk, of whether what sobriety looks like and what not drinking looks like. A really lovely, healthy sobriety, fulfilling life, how we thrive alcohol free, is completely different to just not drinking. This comes from a place of kind of deprivation of, I'm depriving myself, I can't drink. And then this comes from a place of, I don't want to drink. And it comes from a place of like fulfillment and just absolutely loving life. And that does take some work. I always think I never ever want to drink. There's
yeah.
there's never a thought in me that I want to drink. But I talk about sobriety all the time. I've set my life up to succeed in sobriety, right? And I do the work that goes alongside it. It doesn't take everything of me. I go and I have a fulfilling life doing other stuff. But it's knowing that that work comes along with sobriety if you want a really happy sobriety. And
Yeah.
happy sobriety is absolutely possible.
You have to do the work.
Yeah,
It's the work that makes you sober.
yeah.
It's not the not drinking. It's the work that makes you sober. And you buy so many books that you don't have time to read because you're so busy doing things not drinking.
Yeah, and I will recommend at least 10 books every call because I get super overexcited just looking at all of them there. But no, it's exciting path. For anybody that does want to join Sobriety Sisterhood, we do have a book club every month where, because I get very, very excited about reading these books that aren't necessarily about people giving up alcohol. Like, it's not quit lit. I've not actually read any quit lit. It's more about the work that goes alongside it. And I love our book club because we're reading books through a sober lens, that they're not necessarily about alcohol-free journeys, but they are about for me what the work looks like, about improving our relationships with ourselves, with others, all those types of things. So you can find that at the on the website too. Lovely. Thank you, Sarah. We made it finally. We have tried doing these
Amazing.
over and over again, but we made it. Yay. Well done. And thank you for joining us today. We will post this on my wall and maybe Sarah's too. And if you have any questions or anything that you would like us to discuss next week, then just drop me a line. Yeah. Great. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Ellen. See you soon.
And
Cheers.
bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.